Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how you can configure DHCP server with Inter-VLAN routing. Okay, so in the previous videos guys, in the previous video we looked at how we can configure DHCP server. Okay, and we learned that when we are configuring DHCP server, let me just go back to that video so that I can show you. So this is the topology that we use to configure DHCP server. Okay, and we managed to configure DHCP server in this router such that all the devices in the network were able to obtain IP addresses automatically. Okay, the first thing that we did was to assign IP address to each interface of the router. Okay, then that particular IP address acted as the default router when we were configuring DHCP server. So after that we went to configuring DHCP server, of which the first command we did was to enable DHCP service. Just type the service DHCP. Then the second command that you do, you create the pools. So for example, this is IT department, you can say pool IT dep, then finance also the same way, and HR the same way. Then you include the network. Okay, network, this one. Okay, then the default router should be the IP address of the connecting router's interface. Okay, then the DNS server you can use as a default router. Okay, and suppose you have a range of IP addresses that you want to exclude from dynamic configuration, you specify this command. Okay, alright guys, so before we may begin today's class guys, suppose you're not subscribed, do us that favor guys, hit on the subscribe button, like our video and share. Alright guys, so let's start our today's class. DHCP configuration with Inter-VLAN. Let's assume in this topology guys, we only have this one switch. Okay, and all the devices in IT department and HR department are connected to this switch, meaning we will only have one physical link from the router to the switch. Okay, and how many departments are these? 3 departments now, because the HR department devices are connecting here, IT department devices are connecting here. Let's assume this switch is not here, this switch is not here, so we only have this link and the device is connected to this switch, such that we have 3 departments and they belong to different VLAN numbers. Let's say IT department belongs to VLAN 10, this belongs to VLAN 20 and VLAN 30. What do we do now that we only have one physical link? Okay, and each department is in a separate network. For example, in IT department will be this one, finance will be this one, and HR will be this one, and we only have one. Let's just assume, let me delete them. Let's assume, okay, so all these devices are connected here. Okay, let's assume they are connecting here. Okay, and while we are configuring Inter-VLAN, we were supposed to assign IP address to the router's interface. So for example, we'll assign IP address here. Okay, we can only assign one IP address to a physical interface, and that will bring problem when we are configuring DHCP server. Okay, because it's only one pool that will receive dynamic IP configuration. So we want to understand the scenario where we can assign IP addresses dynamically by the use of Inter-VLAN routing and DHCP server. So guys, let's begin our class. Okay, so what I need a router, 2911 router, and now a switch, just one switch as I have said, and 6 computer, that will be VLAN 10, and this will be VLAN 20, and finally these 2 will be in VLAN 30. Okay, as you can remember, in the previous class that we configured DHCP server, we didn't configure anything on the switch, and so let me just connect them very fast. I'll do it very fast so that we can proceed. And suppose you have not watched the previous class, kindly, it's very important, kindly watch it so that you can have the two concepts. You know, the concept of Inter-VLAN routing and DHCP server was a little bit challenging for me when I was starting, but I came to pick up when I watched all the tutorials about the DHCP server configuration. So guys, suppose you have not watched the previous class, I will leave a link on the description part. Kindly find your time and watch the class, and always support us. Suppose you have not subscribed, do us that favor guys, like our video, subscribe and share. Okay, alright guys, so let me just separate the borders. I'll use yellow, strong yellow one for this department, and then we apply green, strong green for this department, and finally blue for this department. Okay, okay guys, so let me comment. We want these devices to be in VLAN 10, and a network of 192.168.1.0/24, while these devices to be in VLAN 20, a network of 192.168.2.0/24. Then finally these devices to be in VLAN 30, a network of 192.168.3.0/24. Okay. Okay guys, so let's get to our discussion. The first thing that we will do guys, let's finish configuration on the switch. On the switch, basically what we're going to configure is to configure VLANs. Assign VLAN numbers to switch interfaces such that these two interfaces VLAN 10, the two interfaces VLAN 20, and finally the two interfaces VLAN 30. Okay, and I will tell you a very important part here. And after we have configuring VLANs on the switch, kindly pay close attention. There's something that we're gonna configure that's very important. Let's just start. Come to CLI, enable config T, then we come to switch. Which interfaces are these? This is FA0/2 and FA0/3. So interface range, because we want to configure the same parameters to those two interfaces, FA0/2 to 3. Switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 10. Okay, switch port mode access, make this port to be in access mode, then it should access VLAN 10. Okay, as you can see, access VLAN does not exist. Creating VLAN 10, it has been created successfully. Okay, so exit again, then let's go here. Which interfaces are these? FA0/4 and FA0/5. So interface range 4 to 5. Switch port mode access, then switch port access VLAN 20. Yeah, right. Exit again, then interface range let's go again. 7 and 6. Okay, 6 to 7, 7. Then switch port, mode, access. Then switch port, access, VLAN 30. Do right and exit. Okay guys, we have configured VLANs on this switch. Okay, we have configured VLANs on this switch. So what's the next step? Guys, this is the most important part. Understand that all the access ports will only access VLAN 1. Okay, all these access ports, such that these two ports will only access VLAN 10, the same as these two ports and these two ports for VLAN 30 and VLAN 20. Okay, and now remember, this switch is connected to this router. Okay, and these devices have different VLAN numbers, meaning for them to forward traffic to this router, this link here, this port connecting the router to the switch to the router should be trunk, because trunk allows access to multiple VLAN numbers, right? So what we do, we enable this port to be in trunk mode. Very important. So let me just comment so that you cannot forget. First step, let me just step 1, create VLANs on the switch. Okay, then step 2, step 2, enable trunk interface. Okay, so I'll come on the switch and enable this port to be in trunk mode. Okay, and that interface is FA0/1. Yeah, so I'll just interface FA0/1. Okay, switch port mode trunk. Okay, and you hit enter. Do right. Guys, we are done configuring everything on this switch. So the only configuration that is remaining should be done on this router. Okay, so let me just include here on the switch. On the switch. So these configurations are done on the switch. What to do? You create the VLANs on the switch and assign them to respective port numbers. Okay, then you enable trunk interface. The trunk interface should be the interface connecting the switch to the router. Okay, very important, because we will need all these devices which are in different VLANs, to forward traffic, okay, through this interface. And now that interface should be a trunk interface to enable the access of multiple VLANs. Alright guys, so let's begin configuring the router. The first thing that we should configure on the router is inter-VLAN routing. I'll comment on the router. Step 1, configure inter-VLAN routing. Okay, that is step 1. We configure inter-VLAN routing. And how do we configure inter-VLAN routing? Guys, we said something that we create sub interfaces, okay, such that each department or each VLAN number should be assigned to a sub interface, a different sub interface from the other. Okay, And before we do that, let us turn up the router's interface. You know, by default they are in shutdown state, so it's upon us turn them up. Enable config T, then interface gig 0/0, no shutdown, then do right. It's done. So as you can see, it's green, but it was red. Alright, so let's begin configuring Inter-VLAN. We have how many VLANs? 3 VLANs, 10, 20 and 30, each in a different network, as you can see. So let's begin. Okay, 4. For these devices or for this VLAN number, how will we configure Inter-VLAN? What do? You create a sub interface in this router. Let's say interface gig 0/0.10. You have created a sub interface, okay, to assign to this VLAN, right? Then what do? You specify a command that is called encapsulation dot 1q, then the VLAN number 10, okay. And the most important part also, guys, you assign IP address to this sub interface. IP address 192.168.1.1, okay, 255.255.255.0, okay. Then no shutdown, suppose it was in down state, okay. So this command here will configure Inter-VLAN routing for this VLAN. The first thing that you do is to create a sub interface. Then you specify a command that's called encapsulation.1q, then the VLAN number and IP address. Remember, this IP address will act as the default router when you are configuring DHCP server, okay. Alright, so let's understand the part of DHCP configuration. So step 2 here. Step 2, configure DHCP server. So we want to configure DHCP server for these VLANs. And you know, after understanding this one, this will be very cheap. To configure in DHCP server, what do? Service DHCP, we enable that service. Then you create the pool IP DHCP pool. Let's say this was IT department, IT debt. Then after doing that, you specify the network 192.168.1.0, subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, then default router. The default router here should be the same as IP address of this sub interface, okay. Copy, come to default router and you paste. Then finally DNS server. Let's just use it as the same as default router. Yeah. So guys, we'll be done configuring DHCP server and Inter-VLAN when we apply these commands here. Okay, pretty much simple, guys. What you understand first is that you have to configure the switch. You create VLANs and assign to interfaces. Okay, then you enable trunk interface between the switch and the router. Then everything is done on the switch. You come to the router. The first configuration that you should make on the router is to configure inter-VLAN routing. Okay, for this case we'll configure 3 inter-VLAN routing. We'll create 3 sub interfaces. Okay, this was our demo, but when we get to this device we'll create 3 of them. Okay, and now the second step is to configure DCP server. You enable the service DCP, then you create the pools, the network, default router, and DNS server. Guys, you are done. So let's go to our configuration part. Exit interface. We create inter-VLAN routing gig 0/0.10. Okay, .10. Very important and simple. Hit enter. As you can see, LAN protocol on interface this change to state to hop. Okay, then encapsulation. When you don't know to write a command in full but you have started like this, just hit on tab. Okay, dot 1Q10, the VLAN number here. Okay, VLAN number. For easy remembrance, when you want to create a sub interface, just say gig 00 dot then that VLAN number. For example, here was 10, so it's .10. When you come to encapsulation.1Q, also that VLAN number. Okay? Then IP address 192.168.1.1. Okay, and then subnet mask of 255.255.0. Okay, and you hit enter. Then no shutdown. Exit. Let's create another sub interface for VLAN 20.20. Okay, interface gig 00.20. Very simple. Then encapsulation.1Q20. Very simple. Then IP address of 2.1. Very simple, guys. Then no shutdown. Exit. Finally, for VLAN 30.30. Okay, interface gig 0/0.30. Then encapsulation.1Q30. Okay, and then finally IP address should be 3.1. Then do no shutdown. Then finally you do right, and now we are done configuring inter-VLAN, guys. So what's basically is remaining is to configure DHCP server so that these devices in different departments should get their IP addresses as according to their network. Okay, for example, these devices here should get IP address that correspond to this network. Also these devices and these devices. Very simple. So let's configure DHCP server. Service DHCP IP DHCP pool. Let's say this was IT department. We have IT here. Let me just minimize this one. Let's say this is IT department. I'll just modify IT, and this one is finance. And finally this is HR. Okay, I go to the same router. IP DHCP pool IT, IP DHCP pool IT dept, hit enter. Then what do you do? Network. You assign them this network. Okay, network 192.168.1.0. Subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Okay, and hit enter. Then default router. The default router should be IP address of that sub interface, which was let me just show you above. .1 Q10, yeah, it should be the IP address of this one. Okay, so it should be 192.168.1.1. okay, then DNS should be 192.168.1.1. hit enter and exit. And now let's create another pool, IP DHCP pool. We are done for VLAN 10 or IT department. Okay, IP DHCP pool finance debt. Okay, hit enter. Then network, let me just try to retrieve the above configuration. Press arrow up, arrow down. So the network should be 192.168.2.0. then default router should be 2.1, and finally DNS should be 2.1 also. Okay, then exit. Now final category is DHCP pool HR department for this one. Okay, HR department, then network should be 3.0, then default router should be 3.1, then DNS also should be 3.1, then exit and do right. Now do show start. As you can see, guys, we have created how many pools? 3 pools. IT department, and all the network parameters have been assigned here. We have finance department and HR department, and all the respective network parameters have been assigned, as you can see. Then let's just go down so that you can check Inter-VLAN routing. As you can see, guys, we have 3 sub interfaces. Okay, under gig 00 we have gig 00.10, gig 00.20, and gig 00.30. okay, and all the parameters for Inter-VLAN routing has been assigned, as you can see. Alright, so guys, what is remaining basically is to verify our configuration. What do? Let's go to these devices and enable DHCP. So I'll go to desktop, IP configuration, and DHCP. Wait, it will assign these devices IP addresses automatically, as you can see, 1.1, and all these parameters have been assigned. Let's go to the second device. Also, you will see .3 now. As you can see, successful, guys. And as you can see, guys, before I close it, these devices have obtained IP addresses in this network. Okay, 1.1. Okay, so let's go to the second category. They will have obtained IP address in this network 2.2. Okay, so let's go to this IP configuration and the DHCP 2.2. As you can see, pretty much simple, guys. So for this one also 2.3, as you can see, pretty much simple. And now these devices in HR department will obtain IP addresses in this network 3.3. Okay, let's just go to it. DHCP, as you can see, 3.2, and all the network parameters like default gateway is 3.1 as we assigned earlier. So finally, for that device, 3.3. okay, and guys, let's test communication. Remember, we have configured DHCP server and Inter-VLAN routing, and we said Inter-VLAN routing enables devices in different departments to communicate. So let's try if devices in HR department can communicate with devices in IT department. So this is 3.3. It will try to ping 1.2, ping 192.168.1.2. okay, and you hit enter. The first packet will always fail, but the subsequent one will always be successful. As you see, guys, the devices can communicate in the network. Pretty much simple. And now let's try from finance department to IT or to HR. Ping 192.168.2.1.3. Let's just give it time. The first packet may always fail, but subsequent one successful, as you can see. So let's try to ping 3.3. Successful, guys. Our implementation of Inter-VLAN routing in DHCP server configuration is successful. So, alright guys, that will mark the end of this class. Suppose you like our video, give us a like below, subscribe to our channel, drop a comment also below, and share our video. Bye, and see you again in the next class.